विलेपितचन्द्रशिवं तव नौमि सरस्वतीपादयुगम् गुणनैककुलस्थितिभीतिपदं गुणगौरवगर्वितसत्यपदं कमलोदरकोमलपादतलं तव नौमि सरस्वतीपादयुगम् तव नौमि सरस्वतीपादयुगम् तव नौमि सरस्वतीपादयुगम् त्रिसन्ध्यं यो जपेन्नित्यं जले वापि स्थले स्थितः पाठमात्राद् भवेत् प्राज्ञो ब्रह्मनिष्ठः पुनः पुनः अथ बोधिचित्तानुशंसा नाम प्रथमः परिच्छेदः। ॐ नमो बुद्धाय। सुगतान् ससुतान् सधर्मकायान् प्रणिपत्यादरतोऽखिलांश्च वन्द्यान् सुगतात्मजसंवरावतारम् कथयिष्यामि यथागमं समासा न हि किञ्चिदपूर्वमत्र वाच्यं न च सङ्ग्रन्थनकौशलं ममास्ति अतएव न मे परार्थचिन्ता स्वमनो वासयितुं कृतं मयेदम्।
Okay, are we on? Yes, I think so. So hello and welcome everybody. This is the introduction to our session for today. Before we start, I'd like to encourage you, all of you who would like to hear our live interpretation, to click on the globe icon on the bottom right of your screen. And there you can access our live interpretation by our Chinese language translator, and our Spanish language interpreter, I think Paula Haton. And as for the event itself, there will be live teaching in Tibetan and English interpretation, which you can follow as we go. So it's my real pleasure today and honor to introduce this event. My name is Philippe Zoren, and I'm here because I work for KVP, for Khyentse Vision Project, as translation director. All the members of our team are very happy and are feeling sincere joy and gratitude that the time has finally come to share our translations with you. And as part of this celebration event, today we'll be receiving a live teaching by our KVP scholar, Khenpo Choying Dorjee, who will be speaking on one of our recently produced and recently published KVP translations, which is called the Succinct Notes on the 8 sessions mind training. This text, the Succinct Notes, is very special for me because it's one of the first few, works on which I've worked when I joined the project. And I was part of the translation process as a reviewer, and also by working with our translator Jimmy Creek for this text. So it's very happy moment for me also. And when I first read the text, I found it so beautiful and so inspiring. That was my first impression. And the second one was I was really impressed by the translation that was produced by Jamie Creek, who is our translator for this text, and how a young scholar like this was able to produce such a fine translation. I was very impressed, and it was really a nice experience for me. So just so you know, this is also a very nice example of the way we work at KVP. The text was translated by Jamie, who has his own great skills and his own network of advisors, and it's also workshopped as part of our KVP translator workshops, where all our translation members of our translation team work together and try to resolve questions and issues and really do our best to produce the best translation we can. And so we had all our translators, our Himalayan scholars really workshopping this text. So we feel it's in a pretty good condition, and we've done our best so far to produce the best translation. This is the result you will see today. Our hope with this event is to not only celebrate the translation of this wonderful text, but also give everybody a sense of what kind of works we will be publishing. And we hope that being able to read this text and hear Khenpola's explanation of its meaning will encourage all of you to go check our website and browse our translations and get a sense of the richness and the sort of the vast topics and subjects that are produced, that are to be found in the collected works of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. So just as a reminder, our goal is to translate the whole Kabum, that is the collected works, but also the Kabab, so the revelations of Jamyang Khyentse, first in English, but also we have bigger plans in the future for other languages as well. So I hope you will all stay tuned and keep following our project. So now that I've said those few words, let me introduce our speaker for today. Our very special guest and speaker is really my pleasure today to introduce Khenpo Choying Dorjee. He will bring with his teaching this anniversary celebration to an auspicious conclusion. And for those of you who don't know him yet, Khenpo Choying Dorjee studied at the Dzongsar Khyentse Chikil Dorje Institute Monastic University in Chauntar in northern India, where he received his Khenpo degree in 2004. He studied, among others, under the late Khenpo Wangchuk. After his graduation, he has fulfilled various teaching and leadership positions at the Dzongsar Shedra, and he has been the head principal of the institute from 2013 to 2017. Following Dzongsar Khyentse's wishes, he teaches in many different places of the world and travels a lot, and has also come in contact with modern academia and other research and translation projects. For example, in his position as a visiting scholar at the University of California at Berkeley, and through his work with 84,000 and the Buddhist Digital Resource Center. Now, in his role as a consultant to the Khyentse Vision Project, he helps us with his great familiarity and knowledge about the writings of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, and he also plays a key role in being our bridge to Dzongsar Monastery in eastern Tibet. I'm very happy to welcome Khenpo today. About the text, you will hear now detailed teaching, so I won't say many things, but I have a few notes from the translator who wanted me to say that this text is very special for him. Jamie Creeks said that because it presents brief instructional practice on mind training, or lojong in Tibetan, and it's based on the teachings of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's teacher, who was called Könchok Tenpa Rabgye. He was a Gelugpa master from Amdo. And in this text, Khyentse Wangpo presents in a very brief and succinct way 8 meditation sessions and visualization on very practical and down-to-earth themes such as breathing or food. The text is very beautiful because these instructions can be directly applied in one's day-to-day life without a lot of complications. And it was a real pleasure, I think, for the translator and everybody on the team to work on this text. And so we hope you will enjoy it as well. Okay, so without further speech or ado or taking away more of Khenpola's precious time, let me hand over the session to Khenpo Choying Dorjee for his teaching on the Succinct Notes on the 8 sessions mind training by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. In case you have any questions for Khenpo, please use the Q&A function in the Zoom or the chat if you are watching on YouTube. We will collect your questions, and there will be time at the end. We'll have about 30 minutes for questions and answer at the end of the session. So please write down your questions in the Q&A section. So thanks for your attention. Please enjoy the second, and Khenpo, I pass the session over to you. Thank you.
Lalo, so try to delete to everyone. Tini that ring also ke 가래속으로 춘튼데 다다 공동어들 제베게 내가 슈퍼나인 게 로중 턴제메 신진용설 진짜는 제종 보게 송범능의 유지대 슈아인스.
So, as introduced by the earlier speaker, the Dharma session that we are going to have is going to be based on a text called Succinct Notes on the 8 Sessions of Mind Training that we find in the collected written works of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo.
네, 드랭 아주게 가르속으로 유정 이칸데닌데나 베제 제특바진 냠네 라버도 로종 냠네 젠킨 다임베나 하장 그 펜투 침부진이게 유정게 리지차 데요레스.
So the manual or the text that we are going to use as a as a subject in this session is very special for generally for the Mahayana practitioner, and especially for someone who is cultivating the path of mind training, who is dedicated to mind training. For that kind of person, this particular text is very special.
Tenindi tandate chida namjugi yunglo yema dangdaya koya la kale khade ji yode jindawo jiktam tindigarangi ji marete yenang tangazu nyam lojong nyamli jenken da yana pe misipike je namja jundola nyamli jepike tat tap damga menga o tindiji ji rangi ji chade yoris.
So pertaining to the content of the text itself, it's not very difficult to understand, for example, in comparison to other texts. But for someone who is dedicated and committed to the practice of mind training, the content of this text is a very special set of instructions, very special set of menga pit instruction.
Tindi indi sana tanda nga tso ma dini zinda ma tsudin da yinba yina namjuji xetang da toza mandawa ta che xenke ke ma dinde che xie yung dinda yinba yina nyanke tamchen da yinba yina goyal kale kabu shira chi me yung di sana kare nangu yu se yung di sana ta xenke ke ma xeba na yin susu nyanke tamchen da yinba yina yang ta chitang kare so tikpa chumbi chu nyamni jenke ke rei dinde che yinba yina tene soso ke somnon dani samgam se ando segura o tleji namba di nanglo ji shya yins tene yang tadan di ke yang sankin namba ka nanglan de na cher namba sanje bichu la gaya ji da sanje la gade yue de gi la yang je khu ngue su nyamni jeni da kare suguro ji tende ji ma jenki tende ke re us bare tene namba lenjin de yimena ji 가르치고 observations 넘버 산제 영 라보 특별진 용로노니 그니 로종 제디 제당 간디 제거 유메 그거 로종 가르쳐 observation 그 넘버 지네 제난 디그레스.
So since the content of this text is relatively speaking easy to understand, and for those who are already committed to Buddhist practice, and especially those who are committed to the practice of Mahayana greater vehicle, as I speak and as I comment on the text, unlike, for example, the study of other difficult texts, you can, as I am commenting on the text, you can do reflection and meditation at the same time following what I'm speaking. And it's possible that there are some of you who although loves Buddha Dharma and has some sort of a connection to Buddha, may not be yet committed to Buddha Dharma or Buddhist practice in particular. So for you, you can observe, you can stand as an observer of how, for example, the Buddha Dharma in general, and especially the Lojong teachings are practiced and being communicated.
Tende yindi tana ta tringa ngaso ma shiju tinge tansinda ujina namba niji ko ne tongbo lojong tunje mandani ke loju du je kya tang teni nimba de ta lojung tunje ma te nam breri yin ma je karasugoro je nyamlin je dang rimba nyamlin je tang ma je dang de je go yore cinema instructions erwa ta ma dijine tika tsuji guni ma shya de jins.
So my presentation today on this text is going to be structured around two outlines. First, initially, I will present a kind of a brief historical background to this teaching, and then that will be followed by presentation of the instructions on how to practice and cultivate these 8 sessions of mind training, or maybe the 8 themes related to this text.
Tende indi chetang tadi lojong tunje mandani joji padme adhishaki teni pela ma namni ta teni zong de tata ka par de la yana teni nyamni ke joba mache pa nyam se lenji ni yebike ta teni ke nyamlin je
So the text and its content, the teaching, were for the first time brought to debate by Indian master Palden Atisha, Joji Atisha, and then since then until now, the teaching and the practice lineage of this instruction has never been disrupted, and it still continues to this day.
Today in the Joji Padme Atisha said 하장게 다 mambuji게 칭위 여주래 케이킹 저렇게 다니지 근데 라버드 손주선 그 로종라 근데 하장게 세주서지 그 라마티지레 콩데 인베이나 제동도당 아기 취도조 센사다당 근데 지 댄서 그 라마딜라 농하도
So probably most of you are already familiar with the story of Joji Palden Atisha. He is one of the greatest widely learned and realized master, and especially known for his practice of mind training as a part of bodhicitta practice. And it is said that he studied with around 72 teachers, receiving teachings on both sutra and tantric teachings.
Teni kanke tindijike lama tindi nonginde ina lojongge sonjo sembe lojongge nyamlinji rimbanda nam shusaka lama zudila som tindiji yobares.
And among these more than 70 teachers, there are 3 main or 3 primary teachers from whom Atisha received teachings on mind training and bodhicitta.
Tene ti somno ni pena damarakita seju kondo jimbina yinje neto so asabe ki chedula ta sonjuk sembagmani lojong ke nyamni che tombola leni rang kushala soba kushalambala soba yin mingi chedula jimbatang ni ne so tunghi tendiji lama yubere kongen deni jitang lojong tilan chaji kolo sejindo tang maza tungyom seji tedia saying nang zendos.
So the first teacher from whom Atisha received the teachings on Lojong is known as Dharmarakshita, and this Dharmarakshita, this Indian teacher, is one of the great master, a highly realized bodhisattva. And it is said that because on account of his deep cultivation of Lojong, he is able to, for example, give his own flesh as a medicine to heal and then to ease the pain of other beings. And from him, Atisha has received Lojong instructions in the form of, for example, the Lojong Könchok Tenpa Rabgye, the mind training, the wheel of weapon, and then Maja Dugjom. So these are some of the teachings that Atisha received from this master, Dharmarakshita.
Tenel lama jima de chamben nanjurus mitriya yogi sego mendo. O kang gendeni di ma yana jagom duji do so ko loju karamba ta de sinze. Tene tada lama tadan di chamben nanjushu ju konde yimbe yana yang hajangge songjo samba lojung lojong rumba nyam to set thambol lepsa di yin ji ngui ji dong ha tam je rong su su to la ling thong gi ta ji mi ba ni ji to den gi ni ji re shas
chape di sen chik song song ko ma son ti
jagam doji lo se gire ta ti nai be
so the second teacher from whom Atisha received the teachings and instruction on lojong or mind training is Maitri Yogi Jambineljoor, and for example, Atisha was taught the text called some Lu, and then this teacher is also supposed to have reached a very, very high kind of and deep and profound realization of bodhicitta based on and through the practice of lojong, and he is able to, for example, take the suffering of other beings actually or really to on himself on account of his lojong practice.
Tene Georgie Yang Chanchu Sembe lojong sense ta lama som ganani zo jek tene selling by dharma ketis selling by chujita pa khang yimbares.
And the third teachers from whom Atisha received the teaching on mind training is called Selingpa Dharma Drakpa, Selingpa Dharma Kirti Chugitapa.
Any Kondi Yimbayina, Jetang Kunchusa did that Fungi to send that Yabayina, Indonesia, Samatres, this Asotana Kunchon, Yabog says Kunchuma digiration. Kantana Kong Kenduni, Lojong Sambiki Chedalo, George Padne Adishana, Shasuda, the Jagar Kalkat, so the Nak Yabog says Kunchuaki. That Lojong Tadandi and Tunje Mala Sopic, Lojong Tandema. Dandamana Sobek, Lojong Rumba, December 7 Chedula, Dawa Chubjet something to zinc in the Kimguchi no cons of the chini, selling, Seta, Pana, Carso, Tani, Georgie Tin, Lamate, Tain, the Penny, Kant and the selling facility of Indonesia, but literations.
And this third teacher, selling about Chugi Tagba or Dharmakirti, in our modern times, you could say that he's from Indonesia, some island in Indonesia, and he was born as a prince to a local king there. And Lama Atisha was Bengali from Eastern India, and Atisha, in order to receive the teachings, for example, this 8 sessions mind training or the 7 points of mind training and many other teachings, went or journeyed from Bengal to Indonesia, and it took more than 18 months by sea when Atisha was traveling to receive these teachings from Dharmakirti in Indonesia.
The name Georgia Adisha, Padne Adisha, the selling back Duni. So that Lojong Sonju Sembik, that Lojong, so de Tadangazuke, Nala Yodi, Lojong Tandamata, Luta with the Techati. Teni digi lojong tandem making yamin te ya de bana te ya je tomar se pe chajin te la teni lojong tada yananda wujila lojong sambe rimba sejindo lojong tunje ma ta dana yujin tang te yin de je karas guru ta je lamchir chobje se ndi yobare ta tendrila so pe lojong mambo je joji padne adisha ke teni selling kundin teni senju jires.
So once arriving in Indonesia, and Lama Atisha started to receive instruction from Dharmakirti, and the main teaching on lojong that Atisha received from Dharmakirti is the 7 points of mind training, which is really like the body of the instruction that Atisha received. And as a supplement to this primary teaching, Lama Atisha also, and in order to enhance and develop the understanding and realization of lojong, Lama Atisha also received many supplementary teachings on lojong, like the one that we are studying. And then also there's another set of lojong called Lamkher Chobge, the 18 topics taken as a path and so on.
Teni George Padne Atisha, the Nikusi Medota, Bela, Kunga Chimbuchoni, Belma, Pet. Savik Yugulayana, Lojung Rambata, Hatanke, Dama Samo, the digit Nang Jenny, Conquer, Talhoma Mombo Yubayana, Pino, to say, two drum them by Javin Juni, Jibul and Nangi, the digitations.
So at the later stage of Lama Atisha's life, he went to Tibet, and once he was in Tibet, among many teachings that Lama Atisha imparted in Tibet, he considered Lojong instruction to be the most profound and precious, and Lama Atisha actually transmitted or gave this teaching only to one student, his heart son, namely Tromten Gewijungne.
Geshe Tenpa Yimchugres.
And another name of Tromtenpa is Geshe Tenpa.
Kadampa ki chungo tawo tere de yures.
And he's really like the source of Kadampa teaching and tradition.
Tene kangende yimbe yena yang tande lojong ge nyamlinde. Tan lojong ku zode dagin jeba gambe songju. Dagin jebe songju. Je sam gamba tere de yure. Tate hajang ge tsa bu tegen menga de tsa bu jeni. Kong lomanda ina kunchi nomsum teno mato pe manong re songdo.
And Tromtenpa himself also took and then considered Lojong teachings to be very precious, and among many instructions associated with Lojong for Tromtenpa, the bodhicitta's practice of exchanging self-cherishing with other cherishing is for Tromtenpa is the most precious. And when Tromtenpa imparted this Lojong instruction, he gave this particular instruction only to three brothers, the three Kadampa brothers.
Tene tinani pena kunche samjinani chiwa putupa ne junita lojung tendmate ma putupa ke long thomba ta charawala sopa nani ti juni chekawa yihi doji kuduni sande tene to samang the memombola ma na ya go te tsupare ma te pa na ma ninju jini lojung tendmate liji chimbare shas tendmate.
And so from Tromtenpa, the Lojong tradition were transmitted through three brothers, and then among these three brothers, the elder one is Putua, and Putua mainly instructed Lojong in the form of 7 points of mind training. So Putua to Langtangpa, and then from Langtangpa to Sharawa, and from Sharawa to Geshe Chekawa. And only during the time of Geshe Chekawa, the Lojong teachings were made more public. And until then, Lojong teachings and instructions were mainly transmitted in the form of like a Nyunji, like from teacher to master, and not widely available.
Tene tadandi lojong tin tunje mandoji imbe na ta kunche nomsum gnani nimba chenhawa se joji kita shapse gnamba doji tensunda ina sopan se ya pachi tindiji insare tinde gnamba te jeni ta yorumol tinde ji khonginde ina khongge na ya khong loma de ta long thong ba de sharaba khong number de khong number to so padlama ninju ji insare tene cheka wa yimi tindiji koni ta ma je lojong de to so memobol ma na ni tene ta ta padla ta. And the
instruction, the 8 sessions of mind training, were again transmitted from one of these three brothers, namely Chengawa, and Chengawa actually served as an attendant, as a personal attendant of Atisha for a very long time. And the current text, the instruction, 8 sessions mind training, has been transmitted through him, and from Chengawa to Langtangpa, Sharawa, and Chekawa. And again, only during the time of Chekawa, the instruction associated with 8 sessions mind training became widely or relatively widely available. And until then, it was again transmitted from one teacher to student or disciple.
Tene ta loju di thung ma thung cheni shuba ina tatandi Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo ina khange tatandi lojong sensa ka lama de sure de yoresena jedong Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo ke che ndo nga rine de je ba yin ju kusi jigre la tansa ka lama de la rono zambe ke ne gap so lama jar ngap chu zom je so yore teni kushvari shi simbi ki ji so la jonggo kunru bu ji ki khore ke rono jonggo kunru bu ji rono zamyong di tinang de ina Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo ki dan dongha rine de je ba tansa ka lama de ninja thamba sam ji yore song yore tende ke nani de ina ta ro Gelugpa ki suni pepeke tene Könchok Tenpa Rabgye se ju khong de ni sen yan sembe ke nekap so ma sindi jabya ju tindi jire shas.
So now to make it brief, this story, Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo actually has studied Sutra, Tantra, and then conventional sciences And when Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo composed his own autobiography, he mentioned that he has studied with around 150 teachers. And then after passing of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, when Kongtrul begins to write Kongtrul's own autobiography, Kongtrul mentions that actually Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo has studied with around 200 teachers. So among those more than 200 teachers, Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo received the teaching on this 8 sessions mind training from a teacher associated with the Gelugpa tradition, namely Könchok Tenpa Rabgye. And the text itself is a kind of a note that Khyentse Wangpo made when receiving the teachings.
Then Könchok Tenpa Rabgye khande yimben Khyentse Wangpo ga lama tdege nane hajam kandi gadin chebe ga lama paji juksum yimba yo tndi chege nane jigre chas.
And Khyentse Wangpo, among his many teachers, count around 13 teachers as very, very kind of grateful to him. And among them, Könchok Tenpa Rabgye is one of these 13 teachers who is very much grateful to Khyentse Wangpo.
Then Könchok Tenpa Rabgye khonde yimba yinayo hajang ge chenja chembo. Then lamanda yina sunchu su zani tndi chege soni chage kundila teni pe kongching gi jongsu yebe ge paji 추주 리스 마치비 추 강가 생기 산자 하주 친구인바 어 든지지당 드는 영 진짜 온볼에 공로 주고 사지 gemba 든지지레스
And Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo gonglo chugule jebe sungwal.
콩 영 진짜 온볼에 공로 주고 사지 제요.
So, and the teacher, this Könchok Tenpa Rabgye, he is also one of the most widely learned Tibetan teachers of his time, and he seems to have studied with at least 32 teachers, really receiving teachings from all denominations of Tibetan Buddhist traditions and lineages, and really like learned and then widely aware of different and various traditions. And he seems to be like 19 years older than Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo.
Then 제티 얘는 콩 Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo 그 가든 제 라마 임바 마세바 Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo 그 로마양 자치 휴지 차선데스.
So not only Könchok Tenpa Rabgye is a very important teacher of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, but also was one of the most important disciple of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo.
Then 제삼 then 인데 다 강한다네요. Then lojung trengaso lojung tunjeme sindi nyungsake ta lojunda yina tandijires.
So in any case, the background story of the text that we are going to study together, the Succinct Notes on 8 sessions mind training, is like this.
Then 당스 다 trengaso hejuge chunsen telman yoyans.
So now we will enter into the main topic that we are going to study together today.
Then chunsen namjunde na tada lojung tandome inare di lojung tunje banda inare de kare jongresana jangchuk sem ke lotia jangyure timbi indana ndi lojung de nyamse lenkin ta nyamlinde dangwa de tsasanda yembe ina konchu somne japson drosinki Könchok Japson Rohin Sini Samba Sonchu to Toki Sinking Kanza, Teda Tamjela, Sonchu Sandia, Comfort Tanzik, the digital Yaji, Danga, Mangaji, Chadi Yuris.
So, generally speaking, for example, whether this 8 sessions mind training or 7 points of mind training, traditionally, when these teachings are taught, they are mainly taught for someone who has already someone who has already taken refuge vow and also already who have generated bodhicitta, and these teachings and instructions are imparted as a pith instruction so that their experience and their cultivation and their practice of bodhicitta can enhance. So these are really instructed or imparted for someone who has already given rise to bodhicitta preceded by taking refuge.
Tendi independent nga so yung korang ke yogtana dina ne lojung tun jibote nam so so nyamse lendu ka chala ngwan so rogo ngwan ro jorwe chu jogdang chepra lamen nan jo gamla so wa da tap se ni ji song ya yures.
So therefore, for example, if you look at the colophon of the text, Khyentse Wangpo mentions that when practicing profound instructions such as this, you should, the practitioner, as a preliminary, do the 6 preparatory practices and especially meditate on Guru Yoga and pray fervently. So,
Tindi in this ana tata pena so namjun in the lojum tunje mat so the nyams and nendin na hondo chu jo to so kanga thamna ya bore tinan za nanga chihu de sumbana de togoya nanga chimbore to tinge ngoto dudu hondo jobi chu tuk se de maji tombo shuins.
So as mentioned here, and also generally when we are practicing the 8 sessions mind training, it is always preceded by 6 preparatory practices, and I will briefly mention them and present in a very brief manner.
And in the tapena tambo tam the lojong to so nyams leon lenjana tambo sonso desa nekang the zonda yenata kong zok lojong ke chuen to so nyams len and the deba yena the jego yore sin ta tisungo yore mato yon ta chiglojong the nyamling chen tan din the hondo kanga the zogo yena inki miji zogo go tindike kechanda which mares ro.
So these 6 preparatory practices are again for someone who wants to do a formal session, but they are not necessary. No.
And today in the Tanata, Tombo Pechagana Ronge, Lonyong, Kenyamni Chesake, Nekon to the Jedruyabu Jet, the Netina, the Sonji. Tamba Hagatoba, George, Kusung to think a thing and the Giovanna, Shambra, and the Tadikea, or the Nango on those takeaways.
So the first is really to prepare the place where one is going to practice, like really preparing the environment where one is going to do the formal session, like cleaning the place. And then also if one has the representative of Buddha's statue, like Buddha Shakyamuni's statue, scriptures, or representative of Buddha's mind, so arranging them in a very inspiring way and then setting the environment is the first preparatory practice.
And then Nimba de la Dindiki Kusung to the thing, Nala, so can tripping Nopo, Pena Metal, Dopo La Sobake, Josonki, Pitonwa, the Niki Chabashum de Goba Lake in the Water Shambacha, or this is.
The second preparatory practice is now making offerings to the representation of Buddha's body, speech, and mind, like flower, incense. And when one is offering, one should try to make an offering that is really good in quality, and then also fresh. And then when one is offering, one should make the offering in a more elegant manner.
And Sumba in the Yembayana Karesuguro, Soso Moiso Lojong to Yams and Lane with Zanama, Dosa, Deva, something to Shalom Deni, the Nikonjus on the Japson water, Sanjay to Chego, you're that thing that only Duduji Shubins.
The third is now having prepared and the environment and then made this offering, one sits on a cushion in the position of meditative position, and one after taking seat, one is supposed to practice refuge and bodhicitta, which I will again elaborate later on.
Any Yiba de Taroni Gandan Desic net so the Tabushing the Gamianta, De la Könchok Tenpa Rabgye, Hala so Sinjilavia, Chia to Yore, that the Solicic, Misanamju, Manchu said you down, Drenchu said it in the song you have a Nike go with a song.
And the fourth is now ready to visualize one's own environment as a Buddha field, and one can transform this through powerful mantra or by invoking the truth and so on. And in the instruction, it is said that one can follow this kind of transformation or visualization as presented in the liturgies associated with Medicine Buddha or in the liturgies associated with Tara.
Ngabade, that social you sonum just sa, Digwa Jana, to Nangachim switch Chadego, Lojong to Yamson in the Lano Yabuyuan. Then it did Sajong ne kanga chong de ke yala dumbase ya ke tesu ku nyamni tuni jade jade knows.
The fifth is ready to accumulate merit and purify one's own obscuration and one's own negativities. And for a Lojong practitioner, this purification and accumulation are utmost important, and in order to successfully complete the practice. And in order to accomplish this purification and accumulation practice, as a fifth preparatory practice, one is instructed to the 7 limbs practices, in which all this purification and accumulation are embedded or subsumed.
Tene Drukpa tel na yana ta ngwen so choging mikpa to so sawa chene menda pot matse patene dan chempo somji goni sobandria o tati jeshas.
The sixth is now visualizing the Choshing, the tree of merit, and then offering mandala, making mandala offering, and supplicating to this refuge or this host of merit through 3 great factors.
Pena dan chempo som seung di zana tanang aso je tanjur jobje de nem melorumbu che deni nye jeng deni da karesuguro diten do lojong ge nyamne de nyamse lengyu du zana deni lojong de ke nyamle men garbe ke lot de jula mijiwa ke so andriata jektere.
So the first one among these 3 great kind of a factor while one is supplicating is, the first is that understanding that in this life I have acquired a human body or human life which is endowed with freedom and advantages, and also chance or opportunity to cultivate the profound lojong, and really supplicating to the field of merit, so that in my being may the contradictory factors of lojong shall never arise. So this is the first supplication that one should make.
Tene tata nimba de sonjuk je samra mochi number ni laso beke tene yanti cheperchin nyo de jewa ke so an de bianda oto sumba de la ta ti lo jong ke negap to sedang nang ke parche thonji niwarshiwa o tindi ke tansi samna so an de biate tang hondu ke nang ni tuba de tere is ro.
And then the second and third supplication, the second supplication is really supplicating and praying fervently so that the true bodhicitta, the 2 aspects or two bodhicitta will swiftly arise in one's own being. And then the third is again supplicating to the field of merit, so that when one is practicing in cultivating and dedicating to the cultivation of the lojong and bodhicitta's practice, supplicating the field of merit so that the obstacles, the both internal and external obstacle, will be immediately pacified. So these 3 are the 6th preparatory practices.
Oh, tindi chene ta tinam ngwan drusin beki jisla ta nani he de bi lojong tunje senayo dona ngaso samasa yendo samasavala tene lojong so ta na ye ko ola tene lojong so la so pata dona nangya junding ke nanga cheso kanga kabla lojong so ke nyamne to so te nyamso lingo keta kareso ko dongwa de tene marma gi heyoris.
And then, having practiced the preparatory practices, now one gets into the main practice, namely these 8 sessions on mind training. And 8 sessions of mind training are really taking our mundane or day-to-day tasks and transforming them into path, like eating the food. So how one can transform these daily activities or breathing and then transforming it into the path.
Oh, tindi de tang aso tangbu kong de shuba na yen ke tring aso lo yong di tunje ba de ma nomse de man rodu de na ina je samgam je yo de roya is.
So as I mentioned earlier at the very beginning, today for our session, as I command, please reflect and contemplate. So we will continue the hearing and contemplation simultaneously.
Tene dan number lenje dada saso kawai jo yoba ina tab de won yoba tang yang komba da to sola nasa yoba ina karesogoro doyal kanga yoba ina kupcha to so thol re ron so kande tendi tab de na tendi de gena digire te mi tendi ka kanga me ba ina tene shap je mo tong doyal so tan do chu du ga ba ina da kya to ma ka ding ge tata kunyi to so thong nyu yorba tenang ku tong na yin ge something that Jerem's Lunda not shouldn't
So today, I guess most of you are comfortable, and if you have some problem with your legs or if you're in a place where you cannot sit, apart from that, for those of you who are possible, please assume the meditative posture. I am sure all of you have already seen the representation Buddha's statue, our teacher's statue, or representation of Buddha, and please assume the physical posture, the meditative physical posture of Buddha, like assuming the 7 posture of Vairocana, the physical posture of Vairocana. And with regards to your breathing, just breathe normally.
Tene samjin de yen bayi na depa ke game ju maom ban dun so tene tata ngam bu ndramanda nenga kare na yana dedala jik somna mende ma to so hejin sam to ne ji eurojis.
And also with regards to your mental dimension, please entertain your past, imagine about future, and then also don't give to the many other imagination related with the current time. So please rest your mind.
Tate something ji jolong gu du se ji shubayin tene ti tena ta nga so chamdo de semje nyam de ji cheya yins.
So this is a very brief presentation with regards to the something gichelom, literally the conduct of meditation or meditative conduct. And now, having assumed this meditative conduct or meditative posture, we will together do the refuge and bodhicitta.
Tene rong so so donna da kya ke temba kadin kin la songje da songchu sembe so samje meje be korwa ngu su yu sam go gres.
So now please visualize that our kind and compassionate teacher, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, is in front of you, actually in real, and Lord Buddha is being surrounded by infinite number of other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
Taga na yin ke tambe chu Könchok Tenpa Rabgye ke chu zik se man putin da jar zik ba na yin ke tamba sanji ke jablo le tende ji yoba tende ji ni sam den se na tende ji samro ji se gomro ji is.
And behind Buddha, please visualize the stacks of Buddhist scriptures representing the Dharma jewel.
Tene da tende ke Könchok samjin dundo rangi ki bu mayin ban rang za pamani zi be nang ke ka chu simji tamje de rang ka ni jeni songje la dang chue da gen de japson do yo ba nang ki japson do yo ba de ji some shows.
And then in front of these 3 jewels, please visualize yourself and together with your father and mother of this life, and also imagine that all sentient beings are with you, and now also visualize that all sentient beings are taking refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as you are taking refuge.
Tene so sam ka nolin de na khoa dongha je rangge la ninjong da. Tene Könchok samje yöntin to so la tongde yichi tang ma ju samje yin nam dongha le dande ke ninji to so ko ni nang ni tene ta Könchok sam japson do yu some sam ka to ni jam do so jis.
And in your mind, please now think that generate the renunciation with regards to the samsaric existence, and then also generate faith and devotion, the 3 kinds of devotion towards the qualities, enlightened qualities of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And then also please infuse your mind with the compassion for the suffering samsaric sentient beings, and through these qualities, please take refuge.
Teni sam ka tholen ni na Jabson Rodi na tu tata ni song de songchu mathab ji pardala ta zobu sanje de dage ta karesuguro tamballa na me pat zumi samchus tel songje konjul Jabson Rores.
And with regards to Buddha, as a practice of taking refuge with Buddha, please think that from now, from this very moment until I attain the great enlightenment, think that I am going to take Buddha as my teacher, as my guide.
Tene tang aso songchu ki konfon tan ni ke kanza ji yimbi ke goni tene jene Jabson Dogu yoba yindu ta te topresepe ke lam te ta tamba sanje ke chetre te yamba te ta nga lam ke zo to lam de zumi samne samku te chuegle Jabson Dogu res.
And then now one should take refuge with Dharma, and this is as someone who is inspired to seek liberation, seek awakening, and the path towards awakening is the path that has been taught by Buddha. So now think that I will take the path that has been taught by Buddha as the primary path to travel or to advance towards the great liberation, and this is how one takes the refuge with the Dharma.
Ne lam the nyams ne bik makeup solaya kadina ji kan de shusala soba zo chebe ta zhu zong kyu de phabu gendi to zumi samne tane ji somna daru ji site gendi li Jabson Res.
And then think that as one practices the path, one needs someone to ask question and share with, and for this one will take the Sangha as a refuge. So this is how one's attitude or the expression of taking refuge with Sangha is constituted in.
Tene tadan di ten samni ta namkhe kachep ji songchu ji sem je wa de namkhe kachep ji semji thamji ji tan zobo songji ji kong to prasa de che de ta lo jong thunje man de nyam se nengi samne som de na ro chis.
And then now one should think or reflect that for the sake of all sentient beings, I will aspire to attain the Buddhahood, and in order to do that, think that I will enter into the practice and cultivation of the instruction embedded in the 8 sessions mind training.
Tene tensam telata tangu kondo shupa nangin ke tatan di ke lojong ge nyamling ji zo de lojong tande man no he ja ju tele losu chuba ji yo mares.
As I mentioned earlier, the main kind of a core instruction associated, for example, with this text is also not different from the content or core content of the 7 points of mind training.
Tene lojong tande man ge nang ge lojong ge zo onda bo te tangling tere di yuris.
And in the 7 points of mind training, the core instruction, the main instruction is Tonglen Sungrwal, the instruction on Tonglen, giving and taking.
Dagin jewa gomba sonju ji san tere di yuris.
Or to express in another way, it is the cultivation of bodhicitta, of exchanging self and other.
Oh, that the dagin jewi sonju ji san de gomji de na tan de ni sela teni jongso tang ola teni jongso la so ba ge je yoba de no margin ma shua is ta.
So as a practice, as a cultivation of that bodhicitta, the exchange of self with other, and in order to enhance and cultivate that qualities, there are in this text there are methods like cultivation of that quality, relying on food, relying on bread, and so on. So these are the instructions that we will now I will begin to present.
Then the karaso shialo lehawres.
And it's easy to understand them.
Tende independenta chuje je menna jendage tezel thinki tende rate doji mayina di selate be lojung de jenda nam je sunum je zo batang roni ke yang teze to so te plan nam nyom ke takhi ya hyu ji re song dos.
So the first point, this mind training pertaining to food, is especially pertinent to some Dharma practitioner who relies on the generosity of benefactors. So in order not to waste the generosity of the benefactors and to accumulate and also not to become indebted, one can practice this instruction.
Tene se sawa se sayo to lojong cheni tene tele tene zobu songje ji kong to prasabe ki chet ta to de de ta to gu pa de.
So this instruction really is saying that one can practice and cultivate the quality of lojong as one eats, and of course the ultimate purpose of practicing lojong as one eats is to attain the Buddhahood.
Tene ati karso chuse ji mena tenga yin de min deze la ting go de mo suina soma kende yimbeina tanandi sel ting ni lojong jebe ke negap so thoman duhi de la pen ngaran so lupun de ran la tene ne de bik simbe jete yitong se de juyo de bare de da tam ji ngaso ke se san lupun sona simbuti nam so de gure se saike lupo masona simbuto so tuguyo mare so de dana 대단한 팬백인 도시당 다다 세계 직세 사디나 세디 심부터 솔라 다다나 가랑 기부 그 소베치도 많이 봐 대단한 다다나 이나요 팬바 마음발랑 큐기 눈이 되나 손제살 건드진 도시이고니 다 들리지고니 세디 동부 사고 요레스.
So whether one is a Dharma practitioner who is supported by other, or whether one is self-supported Dharma practitioner, in any case, as we eat, the thought should be that for example, in our physical body, it is said that there are more than 84,000 insects residing, or microorganisms residing in our body. So as one takes the food, one should generate this thought that through taking this food, it will able to sustain my body, and through the sustenance of my body, it will be also able to support these microorganisms inhabiting in my bodies. So this is how one should think. And then also one should generate a thought that currently I'm benefiting these microorganisms through my body, but in future, when I become enlightened, one should aspire that one will be able to benefit this more than 84,000 microorganisms through one's own turning of wheel of Dharma.
Ta se nuso sane tangone tanande sele tembe lojong de jedis sana penanga so se da sana ta chen number gyula sama sa jon do tang chun thong gyu yoba ina tande je thong ha chi sa dom de dos san.
So the main instruction is now, so here it really, if for example, if you are near, if you have like water or drinks or food, please drink water and then eat anything that you have nearby if you happen to have them.
Tene ma sani ma ni yung de nyam de la karesam go go se sam ko tola tang ngarang ke za ba phama ni zo se be ma ju samji thamji ji judu ji de ba de kunjong ke de me duwa je du ji dongha no ma na so ba de dongha de ba da khanga de che kyong ma long ba rong to na so lain ni ma sama de ko no ni ba nyam de la rong de na tene samji yin thamji digdib dongha thamji rong de na lengu sam tene ji gom go res tene gom ro ji.
So now as you drink or swallow your food, please think that primarily the negativities of your parents of this life, and also the curse, which is the afflictions and karma of all sentient beings, subsumed under the origin of suffering, and then the results, namely the sufferings stemming from these two afflictions and karma. Please now visualize that as you swallow the food, you are swallowing this samsaric aspect, namely the suffering and its causes in afflictions and karma, you're swallowing the negativities and suffering of all sentient beings. So visualize, as you swallow, please visualize like this.
Tene te the nyam the ngarang so ogma ton sena ogma ten the tamba the nyam the la ta rangi ki jula yebeke deji luke dewa samki kibo tene te jurju gewa kanga yeba te da tamjala phomba meba sanji te da tamjala ma te ni pa tang de te ni tene te ba samaze bo khorang so kanga tamjila tene top song nyamgo gamgo gures.
So now, having swallowed the negativities and the afflictions of all sentient beings with your food, and as you exhale, please visualize that you're exhaling the physical physical health or physical happiness, and then the mental happiness of yourself as being kind of giving to other sentient beings. Not only you're giving, but also visualize that actually they have got this happiness and its causes.
Tene Quran so la ngak pha te ju ki dewa dang gewa ho tenam true sa de semji tamjel true sa de na tene luji digde kanga da sang sunam da yi hi chu zo kanga tem dadan de miwa o ka ko chusma gongo yore seneta gomse de lojung tunje ma ke dada lojung jasa no ta so le jeba yore dadan di no le du je ga de ne samji sam gan bigidos.
So now also visualize that having given voluntarily and happily your own happiness and causes of happiness to other sentient beings, and also visualize that they have got, and having visualized that the sentient beings has attained the happiness that you offered them, please also visualize that their affliction, their obscuration has been completely purified, and on the other hand, the all sentient beings has attained the perfect accumulation of merit and wisdoms, and has attained the state of immobility. And these instructions are presented in the Lojong Jatsa, the 100 cycles of mind training, but in our text it's quite brief.
Chesam tini in the lehla was Samasan Tsuku the Mewa the Nyam de la Yinji Digum Tomjin Sarong the Lot wrong to the Layatang, O Patang the Nyam de la Wrong Digger Kanga the Yena Patang Samne. Then again Ras Big Gisela Digdip Tomji Sang Tony Zo Sonje Kong Top Song Samne. Then did the Gamia data, Tambo as Samasa Sa Kadu Sanaya, the Digi Gom Tommy, then a Tarakoron, Betson Mebang, on Shuki Joya Tomji Pardella, and the
So in this way, it's very easy to practice and understand. As one swallow one's own foods and drinks, one really visualize that one is swallowing the cause of suffering, and then the suffering, the samsaric aspect of all sentient beings into oneself. And as one exhales, one is offering one's own virtues and the fruits of those virtues, namely the happiness and peace to other sentient beings, and through which other sentient beings has been purified and accumulated to accumulation, merit, and wisdom, and also has attained the Buddhahood. So one, whenever one takes foods or drink, one is instructed to practice in this way, and one should keep on sustaining the practice until a time when this visualization and this practice happens almost naturally and then spontaneously, where one does not have to strive.
In the Digologyon, the Sunyams, the Big Jesela gave it Zabatasu, Zobu Sanji, Homo Toyata, Sonju Sani, Yurikeva, Tosuki, Moyate, Jening Mares.
Again, as one practice, please don't forget to dedicate the merit that one has accrued through this practice for the perfection of the Lojong, and also for the generation of bodhicitta, the two bodhicittas.
Tanichadam Lojung Tunjagan to Tombun the Ran, the Susuki, Tab de Wotam, the Jedin and the Ran, Betrin Jedinayam, drink the years.
And in any case, for example, if you find the first instruction among these 8 series of 8 instructions, if you find the first to be most appealing and then some that is more connected to yourself, you can really focus on this alone, and it's sufficient.
Tenetaniba all of them Lojung the Huan is young.
And now the second instruction is in this 8 is the mind training connected to breathing.
다단디 사말라 템바데 사마지 사베기 네갑라 데 제드고라 올데는 뚜준도 그런 다 올데 템베가 로존데나 렘베가 고감다나 몽고요레스 카타고 가디이나요 올동리 제데고 요르바스.
So for example, if you compare the opportunity to practice mind training connected with breathing to the first one, mind training connected with the food, the second one is more abundant because food we sometimes eat, but breathing we have to breathe every time. So it gives us more opportunity to practice the lojong.
테네 단디 올데 템베가 로존 도수 제데산다 남발렌제 그냥 당근 나징 유동들이 이제 손난다로 치스.
So with regards to the second, the mind training connected or pertaining to the breathing, please again stay in the same physical posture that I have mentioned earlier.
테네 드링기 다다 동보도 로존 제사데 소소게 다제와 체크 미신 디크나는데나 unconditional love 세거와 데니기 제와 체크 체크지 소소게 이게 요는라 감치고스.
So here, please visualize someone whom you love unconditionally in this life.
테네 남준도이나 다 영국군 깨체시게 보이나 마운치원도지게 제와 체크 다 소소라 가딘 체크가 암만도지레도 유래 소소고 마한테지 대제 종사주의나래 다다 선보 요요나래 대다가 남바당 간티에 바이나 때나기 그런 건들나 너무 감체네 그런 건들이 그런 속하더니 대여버더니 감고 그랬어.
So generally speaking, for human being, the most kind of emotionally connected person whom we love or who love us unconditionally is our mother. So generally speaking, please visualize your mother, whether she's still alive or she has already passed away. Please visualize as she look, and then visualize her facing yourself.
yang tengi ba the mesusu ke ne dong ge goni yang zewa che ge ma yin bi ba yo ma ka che bu yu na bu yu zi che zewa che ge yo da ka che ge zhou bo dang zhou mo dang da wo de zu ka re su su ka re zewa che ge na dang bo de de ge dang ni and the o dong ning la te ni lo jong de nyam ni je ba yin na nyam ni de la mong do che ge yo sa res.
Of course, it's not universal that the person that we unconditionally love is our mother. So maybe for some people, it could be their children, it could be their partners, or it could be their friends. So in any case, to begin a practice by visualizing someone whom you feel deeply connected with it seems to be a very good way to start so that the lojong practice will be successful and swift.
Tene tati lo jongdong de kande go gure tena tang so so de chene long se de old ma na bo ni ma bugre se sen ma song ze de chu go na bo ni ma bunni de dong nyam de la ta gare sem ko to lo som non de gure se na rang ge yule yebe ke tang za ge ta dewa dang ke bo ge juru ju ge wa de ngen dewa de ju de ki yang su zo ba de number the on the seba in a result carbo pa nima bam titi the had they were now in the carbo jene rang nabo nani rangata nabo ye pa kanani ma the region man rosung somne gom shows. So
now you have visualized the person in front of yourself, facing yourself, and now you're exhaling from your right nostril. And as you exhale, please visualize that you are sending the virtues, the positivities, the and their fruits, and this is what you are sending. But you are sending them in the form of wide rays of like numbers of suns.
Tene pa na wezir ten twin ro de ma yinare rong zewa chegi tsukachi chen rong ka teni gondi yebeke na wo yemba na yan zini Kantana yang wrong teju ke degiti ta pa tesa ke yurtela chösong sangores.
So now your positivities enter into the through the left nostril of the person whom you have imagined, and now visualize that what you have sent has reached to that person, namely your virtues and your happiness.
Then Quran traffic makeup so yana the Quran deba nanging lu de san ji maseba then Quran job sanji kong de top song so gom top ya boyores.
And as you have sent, and as the other person, the visualized person, has received what you have sent, please also visualize that he or she has actually got what he or she desired, mainly probably the physical health and mental peace and so on. And also visualize that now he or she has actually attained the perfect Buddhahood.
Then rangi yung long ya bidis non ya ngubke makeup so now yaman long the movie sambata. Then it did nyom de la kare gongbo is na tata rangi Zewachehu Mageta or inare, so you know, take juke, Dequatam, Jepa, Nipik, so Kangati, take on Malapa, Penangaron, go to the Beletic chat, so Yaditin, start to Tini, Koranhaya, but in the check the Penatina Yinke, Long Yang, Mobic Naked, so Dick Jeb, don't ha, Flama Tiname, but so Caraso Ronge, Tonguni. Wrong check number la tumug number the which going wrong maging now magina that the tangling chesatige now yepani so Johnny wrong now yepani yan zote rang hink tedel pad lepching rang kinsing gumbo tendana rasons long ye ganguris.
So now as you inhale, please visualize that you draws or you are inhaling the negativities, the obscurations, the afflictions, the karmas from your mother or whoever you have visualized in front of you facing yourself. So the negativities and the afflictions and karmas and suffering of that person will come out of her or his right nostril and then enter into you in the form of dark mass through your left nostrils, and here one also has to visualize that as one inhale the negativities, also visualize that one has actually inhaled completely the without traces of the obscurations and afflictions, like for example when one shaves on heads with the blade, no hair is left. Likewise, as one inhales, one should visualize that no traces of these karmic obscurations, the afflictive obscurations and their results, namely the suffering, has remained in that person, and one inhales it in the form of the dark mass, and then it enters into one's left nostril, and it will enter into your heart, and then one should visualize that this has kind of strikes or crushes one's own ego clinging.
Then kid kill dollar, that jeans to sote, that you don't know that jeans in the kill the nay, you bring a pado your mother, you band which is some gen. Then in the gondola, the lame sana, that jeans in the chimbon, the chunchon the cha, chunchon the zame the chas one tao, pen at the legend matos, some gong resundu. So
now one should visualize that as one inhales the negativities in the form of a dark mass through one's left nostril, and as it enters into the center of one heart, one should imagine or visualize that this strikes one's own ego clinging. Of course, maybe ego clinging does not reside in one's heart, but one should visualize and then think that these negativities are now striking, and if one's ego clinging is larger, it is making the ego clinging smaller, and if ego clinging is already smaller, it is extirpating or uprooting the ego clinging from one's heart. So this is how one should visualize.
Oh, that legend thing, the legend, they let Sarki to be near Saki some down. Then you own a tar, Remato Gondemena, Tare, Telemoa Gondemena, Gamnita, all the thing, Lojung Talidango, is.
So this completes a one cycle, and if one has aspiration or if one is inspired, one could do the same cycle, repeat the same cycle for 21 times or more than 21 times. And if one is not inspired, one could bring the practice to a conclusion. And this is how one trains in mind training through or dependent or connected to breath.
Tene pena magila tandijin dagi jewa gombe kapsul samla thol kanganda udo topa na namdo teni mebe chasan bigi jisel tene ta den samni susu pena jewa cheki phagi na phagi da udo ta suina rembanda ni na nimba ta tene rembre yendo susu gi chimsang da daga na yi yulmen da meta tene tendijene non tar rong la ji jawundo juyeba ina tede jebala ta ta de gomdong tende tene gomne olde
So having trained and practiced in this way, and one will arrive at a point where one feels very natural and spontaneous and confident with regards to, for example, the visualized person, namely one's mother in this case. And then one can now shift the focus towards one's father or anybody whom one again feel very connected with, and then enlarge the circle by including family members, by including the people from one's own village, and like including everyone else, everybody. And also one should particularly focus and train mind training in this way by focusing or taking one's own enemy as the focal point or the visualized person in front.
Tenekam gala tongling gimi ba de penang arang gi nyawa kibu ge sanchila nyawa ge donghat so rong for the lay rong de ge ma tang og yung to dan gamya ta tane yang yeda da tondola so ba no ri du su ge dongha tandi le ni gomni ta de da thamjal phen de tongla so ba ta tandi ne gomsar to so jangni de je go go yeseres.
So one should really enhance and develop this cultivation by shifting one's own focus. For example, maybe sometime one could take the beings of the hell alone as the object of one's own meditation, or maybe the sentient beings of hungry ghost realm and so on. And through this, by shifting the focus of the visualization, one can perfect the cultivation of mind training through breathing.
Ta somebody look konga semani konga semani joni ri ro dong ha tang da lo jong se.
Now the third one in this 8th session is the training the mind by multiplying one's body into number of grains of sand in Gangas and taking upon oneself the suffering of beings of the 6 realms.
And they yang ta karesuguro namju ngaso ya ke di janjur tongjum bomjur sewa tanjur tandiji jebersepik mengaji chade gres.
And this is an instruction that will multiply. For example, if one is actually doing only one thing, but if one use the instruction as the third instruction, this will multiply that one into like millions, like limitless, like infinitely.
Tene pena ta so yang religion samne wrong lu ta ngarang so lu tigma to yo marbas.
So currently we only have one physical body.
Tene sam ke toni trune lupo ta wrong lu te changkhan na pa do me nang tha da nyama sem de nang kan tha de le chen de su reason zong tu yo marba pena tina ge changkhan de ji me na wrong lupo de le tindi ke chang ke che tine zong ju me ba ke de ji to yo tine
So now one visualize that although one only has one physical body, but one visualize that one's body has been emanated or multiplied into infinitely equal to the age of a space or limitless extent of space. So actually there's no limit to the age of a space. Likewise, one should now emanate and multiply one's body through visualization into infinite numbers.
Any sangatol karesang warsana ta samchi la yang thana ge naw ka than da che me bare de samchi jerela tane rang lu ta trne jere pa genje trene tane deyon ke karesu goro samchi jeri ke da ba na ge ge zo tam jezog la yin bayina zehi tan dokpa la soba tan wona semji tam jel kala kan deba te thongke ge tandi ji luji yin ne pha semji jere la luji tandi ji jimba tang segona burni teda ke khran semji jare ke kan deba de pha simbar jeto tandi ji jegu samgo wes.
So now visualize that one has actually sent the one's body to every sentient beings, like one body to every individual sentient beings, and this body that one has sent forth is able to fulfill the aspiration, the desires of every sentient beings, whether they are desiring beautiful form or in any case, whatever is being desired by sentient beings, it is able to be fulfilled by the emanated or one's own the visualized body that one sends forward.
And that's what then the maso namju lu sosoke luchik phona luchik phobe sonam de mato yo madde lun dende ji chunni samji dangme ba dende jela kipena luchik samji jel phona luchik phora dang samji jel de be sonam mato yo madde datan dene lu dangme ba dende ji to samji dangme ba dende jela de ba dende sonam de lo jang yo zana sonam ji chele na that Lutong Semebanagi, Senal Semebability channel with this, the Dangasan and the Mangasan and the Digis.
So usually, for example, we only have one physical body and we are able to benefit only one sentient beings at a time through one's own physical body, and the merit accumulated is also limited in extent. But here, because of the instruction, because of this PT instruction, one is able to transform one's body into this infinite in number and serve infinite number of sentient beings at the same time, and also at the same time able to accumulate merit in infinite in extent.
And a young game pena wrong Lutong about the digit to me, marking Yawan is on the Yaga Sipitimo Concom Parna Yuba, Sanji Tedananje, that carries a dick the Jabakanga, the so long, don't get told linger years on Batam. Days on the Mazeba pen and Gitin in Deba la Sat Amboni Chua Sunchuke, Sonchu Samba Tedan on Iomini, Tedag Jula in Ion Tadam, that's a Jua to Sukujula, Depatos or Yorba, or Tendigrate that wrong so language Sunday, Gongo is. So
likewise, as connected with this instruction, one should visualize that one is taking the negativities, the afflictions of the sentient beings down from the hell realm until the peak of samsara, Sivitsemo, and then also not only the karma and afflictions of the samsaric beings, but actually one should visualize that one is voluntarily taking the traces of obscurations that even the bodhisattvas on the bhumis or bodhisattvas, Arya bodhisattvas has.
And then wrong with Degetanga, the Tanaya gets the devil at the Magis Yawan is Zipitsemo, Mazepa Sacho Pendula and the Pulchi take you gum.
Likewise, one visualize that having taken their obscurations and affliction on oneself, one also visualize that now one is offering one's own happiness and root of virtues to the sentient beings from the hell until the peak of samsara, and also to the bodhisattvas and Arya beings on the bhumis and on the paths.
Oh, that the wrong look journey, Congress, Samas and Cho Congress, Sama near the journey. You do good Dongalan because Lord John was able to take 20 days.
So this is the session of training or cultivating Lojong by multiplying one's body into the numbers of grains of sand in the Ganga.
Then that you are shut all thing because Lojong saying the wrong shot of top. That the soul Latin, Teni, Tanona Sankatoni, Gum Jenny, Lojong, the Jebatiris.
The fourth one is training mind connected or pertaining to flesh and blood. So using one's own flesh and blood and then cultivating the quality of mind training.
And the Karasugoro, Dagi just goes so that Janda Siguna, Sanjil never sank in the wrong chudu, Angel Chula Parche, Chudubala Parche sanking, Flapper the Rangiga, the Nepal Lama to so look and Zeban Chelena never sang it to sola then Dagi Java Gombachi Rediuris.
So here the main kind of a being with whom one practiced this mind training pertaining to flesh and blood are primarily those who harm and inflict pain on sentient beings, and then especially those who harm or becomes an obstacle to Dharma practitioner, and particularly those who harms the lifespan and the enlightened activities of one's own teachers, one's own gurus.
Tene Dike Loyon de Tan Tatola Yang Zobusmanji Konto here Magobrete, Nekamande Bayanaya, Tajik Rung, Chu, Dupresepeke, Chug, Rendroseano, Lama Tamji, September Sepeke, the Rendu Yahu Chago Yosaris.
And obviously, of course, the eventual purpose of practicing and cultivating this particular mind training or particular instruction is to attain enlightenment. But even for the immediately, or for even for the immediate purpose, it is probably the best way to remove the obstacles in the practice of Dharma of oneself, or removing the obstacles that are obstructing the enlightened activities of one's own teachers.
Tene Tongdong Tende Imbayana, the Dikit never sang a Ganga the Rang don't sang Nani, don't like Chuk Jan the Pen, go your song, and the song for this.
So now when one practices this, one should visualize that one has actually invited or invoked those who are inflicting harm.
Chesan Teda Tamje, Tata Nasuk, Mishibri Mata Ranga Pama Juba, Hata, Trinchiba Hata Imba, Dela Tele Supersa with Chetan. Tana Labordo, Jik Saram Hamala, Lanchanda Yubi Jumsing on the Tata, Chun Zanking, Jibu Tamjel, Parchinda, or the Padilama Kutsila Parchet and Jumbo Yavana, Tosunana Tajik, the quick look, the Maranga Lupo de Chenabala Tiggins, or Sankotola Tiggy, so Gom Goris.
So now, one should, having invited these beings, one should also visualize that maybe currently I'm ignorant, but in the past they have been actually one's own parents, one's own mothers, not one or two times, but really like a countless number of times. And one should think that one is repaying their kindness. And then also one should think that since they are obstructing the Dharma practice of one's own fellow Dharma practitioner, or the enlightened activities of one's own masters, one should think that as a substitute for the Dharma practitioner and lamas, one should visualize that one is giving one's own body to those who are inflicting harm, whom one has now evoked or visualized in front of oneself.
Tene Tadan be Lojung din Tunjamin on Masuma Nayik, that Dorchu Duya way in a nature number Training Supersabi Chedang. Palden Lama Tamban, you glue the wrong lude taking a chance of Karigana, Sa Trina, Tongue Trina, Se Trina, Karigana, Tachirans, Gis and Pa, the next Sankuton Tongoyola, Kransa Gatana Yin, Chersong, Gomgoris.
So now, in brief, the instruction is, having visualized and invited these beings, one should think that in order to repay your kindness and also in order to substitute for Dharma practitioners and lamas, one should think that I am voluntarily giving my own beings, my own body to you, and you should do whatever you like with my body. If you want to eat it. If you want to drink it. And if you want to use it in another way, please. So one should happily relinquish one's body.
Tene Tesam the Mazepa, Tene Nake, Julia Lupote, Masepa, Tene Long Cure, Masepa, Tusum the Sav, gave us our Kare, but the Panchi, the Cheran, Karen the churches, and Patrick, said the Gomgo.
Not only one's body, one should visualize that actually I am giving everything that I possess, and then also I'm giving the virtues, the root of virtue that I have accumulated in 3 times. So one should really voluntarily give this to the beings that one has invoked.
Then Koran tesa Koran sonda imbayina Karen debata kon debat in the Jiki beju Pambada David switching with the Jurton something that you come is.
And then one should think that one should visualize that having given up one's own body and possession and virtues, one should visualize that they have really benefited the beings as they wish to be benefited in any way that they want to be benefited.
Tani tensam the Tai Karisogoro Tongsek, Yol Tanking, Rang Pong, you Lupo that Tamjang. When the chain are doing multiple ranking number Karaso, Mimipi ranking, someone Danny, number Matoping on the Tango.
And again, one should visualize and practice in such a way that this practice is informed by the view of non-duality or view of non-observation, that actually the object to whom one is giving and then the offering or one's body and then the agent who is doing this visualization has never existed or primordially is pacified. So one should do the practice and the practice should be informed and in a way affected by the view of emptiness.
Oh, that is.
So this is the fourth training of mind pertaining to one's own flesh and blood. The fifth one is mind training pertaining to the Torma offering.
Torma Yosaga no de Mason dressing in Jibini com that I Yans of a Delicheva Torma Tang, De Nandala in the wrong lupo de Tombo to top. Then the Tela Oma Honda Sobage Dusit that Pena Sapome Dusit to jury Joson some the Congo years.
So here, in order to practice this fifth instruction, it is fine if you have a actual Torma, even if you don't have. In any case, the visualization is really to visualize this whole earth, this whole universe as a vessel in which the Torma is content. And in this vessel, one is now, one imagines one's body being cut it into pieces and filling this whole vessel, and these pieces are placed and turned or transformed into nectar or ambrosia through the mantra, the recitation of mantra of Om Ahum.
Tene dosit the Sanjay Labs and Big Jason Lana Taji dosite Giting and Depik and Dran, the Könchok Sigi and Dran, Gombo Yanting and Dran, the Könchok Som, the Pamchi Chuchong. Tene Giting and Mande, but the Pena Rido Ninja and Dran, Lancha Palang and Dran, the Kari by Yanata, Pamchi Lapa, Torma Tang. Namkhan Zes and Namkala Seju Yomarwa, then I in Aras of Pujukatama Kraya, Seju Tenemeba, Church the Permit, the little Podi, the Ganga, the Könchok seeking in the Tosona in the Nibata. Then the Samji Tosona in a pair, Samson, some little Congo with this.
So now, having transformed one's body into this embroidery through Omahu, now one should visualize that one is offering this nectar to the three jewels, to the Dharmapalas who are like Samaya bound Dharmakayas, namely these the Arya beings, and then also one should offer this nectar, this ambrosia to the samsaric beings like the sentient beings of 6 realms and so on. And really now, and then having offered to them, one should visualize that they have been satisfied. And when one is offering this ambrosia, one should also visualize that it is inexhaustible. It's like the treasury of space, so space never exhausts. Likewise, this ambrosia also never exhausts as one keep on offering, and it is gladdening the Arya beings, and then also gratifying and satisfying the samsaric beings.
Tene tombe ke nekap salayana yang tene zo tanam semji jisimba jene dona tangse ke yul Torma Punking Kansa, Project Torma Teda Tamji, Mimiping Nala Yache. Tenin Nyamya Del Land, then to some Tamjela, to some Jimmy Kiwasa, Kisona Yige, Jumata with the Nijin Gum Jane, Nyamselea, or that thing our Tomatin with Lojong dress.
And then as one practice, again, this practice has to be informed by the ultimate bodhicitta, namely the view that maintains that actually the offering, the person who is doing the offering and to whom it's offering actually are non-dual or are primordially empty. And when one gets out of this practice during the post-meditative session, one should, again, one's conduct should be informed by the view that sees the phenomenal as an illusion, like as it is mentioned in the 7 points of mind training, which says, like see the beings as illusory during the post-meditative practice. And this is the instruction on the 6th session, namely the mind training pertaining to the Torma.
Teni tadi tukwa di huwi, tukwa nyual tembe lojong di huwi is.
And now the 6th one is the mind training pertaining or connected to the natural elements.
Jadong tata gong de shu simba tela teni, ta menga seju ji go wondo sola susu go ma lo yana ya. Teni gong ge ting tuk go ni wondo so go tanda de machine to ji nyamsa lentang de machine ji chitli meje ji cha de yuris.
Actually, for example, if one is familiar with the first instructions, then the latter instruction, the successive instructions, there's nothing more. One will be able to easily understand them. There's nothing difficult to understand in the latter instructions.
Tene indingen di du chen ma na so tu se tao zamje jawa telling kola tong ju ba zoya is.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to summarize the remaining instructions and I'm going to leave some time for question and answer session.
Tene yongal tembe lojong se ji den dor chu du ya ba ina ngaran so lubun dik thola ina. Tene yongan da ina sa ga rang gi chue rang gi me rang gi lang rang gi ya ba de da na breri gendo samji tamje desa nesa chosa ki yonga sa chu menong tu so le jorche. Tene samji tamje chowa se bi te gi de chosu sam tene gi gong go se do che ya ba.
So in summary, what the 6th instruction is, for example, our physical body is constituted by the 4 natural elements. So here, one transform one's own the elements that's making up one's own physical body into the naturally existing 4 elements, and then visualize that these elements actually are serving as the basis, as the foundation on which other sentient beings sustain and flourish.
Tene 대긴 때나당 아주 점림 디테일러네 나다 대바 마공베 삼지 망보지 여바이니다나 추노니 마 사인이 전당히 여바이나 나가로 롱가 루보디 코그 저도 차송서면다 삼반능길 삼바 다가나기 사진 되벌 사진 동조 되벌 다 가레이나 된 대바다 대도 파 준이 던지 제거여 삼네 롱가 루보 랑 나온데 던지네 검네.
So now again, even in our world, there are many beings whose desire are not met or whose aspirations are not met, and so one should also visualize that one's body is being transformed and is fulfilling the desire of those beings. So if someone is desiring to cross the ocean, one should visualize that one's body has been transformed into boat or ship. Likewise, if someone is trying to cross a river, one should visualize one's body being transformed into bridges. Or if someone is desiring, for example, for food or drinks, whatever they desire, one should visualize that one's body is being transformed into the object of their desire and fulfilling and gratifying their desires.
Oh, that take
So that's the instruction on the 6th session. Now the 7th one is the mind training by transforming oneself into a wish-fulfilling jewel.
Tapena namjung asus sangono yigin novel seji tende jimbe na tatela konda na so atama tin drop to you but ndiki keje chego yores.
So usually when we speak about a jewel that fulfills one's wishes, we think of a jewel that is granting any kind of wishes or any kind of aspiration.
다 대나기 가능한 샘티 샘기 탐지 낀도 공도인 용사가 이히 나오는 거지 주소는 가면 젤레당 젤레가 고는데 주소는 가면 되라 이히 나오는 거지 주로 용세지 리지 차대 그래서 도도케게.
So in summary, this instruction, training the mind by transforming oneself into a wish-fulfilling jewel, is now visualizing one's own body and one's own being as a wish-granting jewel, and the similarities in terms of functional aspects. So wish-fulfilling tree is able to fulfill the wishes and desire of a sentient being. Likewise, one has transformed one's body into such a entity which is able to fulfill the wishes and aspiration of all sentient beings. So there's the similarity in terms of functional aspect.
Tene tegindu tadandi sosoge luponde yigini no pena surjela sobaga tene rong so du no ji gane ya tege tene jine samji tamji ngba kang yo gamba yana digire songdo.
And of course, one can, it's in the instruction, it is said that it's okay to really visualize one's body in the form or in the shape of a jewel having 8 sides, like 8-sided or octagonal kind of a shape, which fulfilling jewel. And then the 8th instruction is the mind training as an instruction for the moment of death.
And the chitan chikala tende machikoni tachik so chikoyo beke number somnam dan in the jonda the lo jonda de chegoyo de. So
the 8th instruction is one should actually practice it even before the moment of death. So if we have accustomed to the practice when we are alive, so when the moment of death arrives, one will be able to kind of practice the instruction at the moment of death itself.
Lojong nyamne changki to the ma sheyong du shirenga de la she chasa ke ngobo tini mejuji ngobo de da tamji da susu ka je pentol chimbo yoba sunam so sasa ndawo to samji dan rosa dandijel pa tangni she chasa mebaji tombo zoya nanga chimbo huji chade go res teaching this.
So the first point is that as one's own death or moment of death approach, one should sever the object, a possible object at which one might cling. So one should sever and one should give them, for example, maybe for the field of accumulating merit or for the sake of benefits of sentient beings.
가래속으로 님바 될라다 수름지 소사고고 레페나 야나 넘발라 소부고 수름지 소사당 송주지 샘 건접다 단업 송주지 샘 건발라 소부고 수름 소사야당.
And then having severed and having given up one's possession, a possible kind of a object at which one might cling, the second step is really to accumulate merit and wisdom through the practice of 7 limbs practices or through the cultivation of two bodhicitta.
And then chapter the tangu kong the shata powa the Torma powa the supike nyam lalinji tine nyamni lalin tinde de pecho taso nyamni chene dona ngaranso ko phombo ndela shancha tini yilume paji zotobya. And
then especially important at this point is really to sever one's own clinging to one's own body. So as we have already seen, for example, during the practice associated with the mind training through or pertaining to Torma, one is actually severing the clinging to one's body. So at this moment also, it's very important to sever one's own kind of a grasping or clinging at one's own body.
Tene malam jemni penas namju songju ji san je do le ki tu chen da wo de ma cheren khan da wo do ba do da ma nga la ne de anda yong ke ba ne de tendu ki kap se je chu wo yore tendu lam ne je ba da je tane yang songju ji san de nyam ne namju ya ko je de go yo ba yana kin de chen ni nyam ne ma ta ba ke ne sa de pena me hen ne ba da wo do ma ma yin de ne ba se ji da wo ne chen bo ne ba da nyam ta ko tu so je wo de zana songju ji san de je 대두 냠네 마타바 효노야 근데 용고여래 제가 대달라 예 문로와 처음 문로가 신질라로 지스는 소반데 보고요.
And then that should be followed by making supplication, and the supplication is that generally speaking there are few moments where it is possible to forget the bodhicitta. For example, in the text it lists 4, like the moment of death. It's possible that one might forget the practice of bodhicitta. Likewise, during the intermediate state, likewise when one is being conceived in one's mother's womb, or in the next life. These are some of the occasions where the bodhicitta might be forgotten. So one should supplicate, and then supplicate so that one will not forget the practice of bodhicitta during these 4 states. Likewise, one should supplicate to the exalted being, asking them to bless oneself so that one's mind training, one will not lose one's mind training on certain occasion where it is possible to lose the mind training. So namely, for example, if one is being harmed by human being or non-human illness, and when strong affliction arises, one might lose the practice of mind training. So supplicating so that one will not lose the practice during these occasions. So here, this actually concludes the presentation on the 8 sessions of mind training. And of course, sometimes a thought might arise in our mind which asks, like, what is the benefit of this kind of visualization and practice?
Yena tata deni nyamse lendo to sondayena ta dhamma seondin nenga changchung ji pa leka chungchung ji ledu tana tanda chimbu ji drop yak leka chungchung chadi this.
In any case, these instructions are really like a crucial point, the crucial aspect of the practice, and they are pit instruction in the sense that by doing seemingly small practices, one is able to accomplish a huge kind of a path or huge accomplishment and realization.
Jumsing karasana songgeji song chu tamcheji nimbo zote da dongha ganga ga jurchu da jinzi de ma chungji ya jang jetang dewa ganga ga tobar sebi ji yin jinzi de gongper tangwar seba degi che de yima yindi da jinzi ma durya jeta yin jinzi ya gongper tangwar sebi ta thakhi lana me ba chadi jumsing kunis.
The reason is that if we contemplate and reflect on the essence of Buddha's teaching, the essence of Buddha's teaching is really to initially suppress and then eventually to uproot the source, the ultimate source of suffering, namely ego clinging or self-cherishing. And another aspect of the essence of Buddha's teaching is really to enhance and then to cultivate the motivation or the attitude of other cherishing. And so these instructions are really kind of essential instructions through which one will be able to subdue this self-cherishing and eventually eradicate it. And then instead of that, one will be able to supplant one's mind with other cherishing. So therefore, these instructions are very crucial and very important.
Laso tangaso tiso kaselhana na tingaso traveling toy tiso kaselhana.
Kamanchunidula.
Ale gonda tate madrama tate la traveling chair na tishuis.
So now the remaining time, the 12 minutes, we will dedicate for question and answer session, and I'm sorry for taking most of the time.
Okay, thank you so much, Kembola, for such wonderful, clear and inspiring words. Thank you also to our Lopon Sonam Jamzola for such an excellent translation. I will now be reading questions that were asked in the question and answer from the audience. So the first question, question number 1 is in English. Is this teaching similar to the work called the 8 verses of training the mind? In Tibetan called Lojong Sik Yema.
Yes,
question.
that's right. It's the mind training is exactly the same. The the 8 verses of the mind training and the 7 point of mind training. Those are the main mind training, and then these 8 sections are particular to that mind training. This will make them to develop or
it will enhance and develop the other mind trainings.
Yes. Okay. Then
Thank you so much. The second question is as follows. Sentient beings have not only virtuous wishes, but also evil wishes. Why should we sacrifice our body to fulfill their evil wishes?
Kandila sanga.
Simjen la danda di deba dida khashela gewi gi deba dang member dinde yori di simjen khashela yang danda di rewa dugja dinde yor was chesang nganze da libo di consula dinde sambat tat kalo rewa dugja dinde dubya chi do garjin ngo gores.
Oh, the kon de ba jeng ngo di say labrava. Labra. So wrong sem the jongwar sabi chedres. So
one has to remember the main the primary aim of Lojong practice is really to train one's own mind.
Then wrong sem the jongo di na namju ke somnan dandong le pedekal dosu jongjong tangni jongo gures.
And within the context of mind training, when one is practicing the mind training, the Lojong, one should really kind of transform mind in such a way that the mind is suffused with opposite of what we usually entertain and what arises in our normal mind.
Namju ke sonam dandang dang samdong chetang de Torma mebane dada pa de cheer the lamhon de ma song res.
This is because our usual attitude, the usual mindset is we have been habituated and associated with this usual mindset from like a beginningless time, but until now it has not served us in any good manner. And the reason is that because our normal mindset are rooted and motivated by self-cherishing. So now, having recognized that self-cherishing as the root of all suffering, one should, in order to destroy it, one should kind of visualize and then think in a more directly contradictory way to this usual mindset. Next question.
Thank you. The third question goes as follows. Does Tonglen practice actually relieve others of suffering and make oneself experience it instead?
Tadandi Tonglen Jego de Yange Dongha Rang to the Musa Lane in Roland May or Rebes Larry Sarva.
Redul Shangi Dunge de Mos Segirebes.
Tate Yange Dongha Rang to the lane Togo in a Satogo, the Mataba in a
Generally speaking, in order to really actually take other suffering and give one's own happiness, one must have attained, one should, as a prerequisite, one should have attained the bhumis, the Arya levels, and otherwise it's just merely making aspiration alone is not enough.
Pena Tata Samben Nanjuji, Loji Shuba, Kong, Yina, Jink, Donga, those wrong to link to ya new but and younger the Zani Mayak link to PG, so you get to go matters.
So as I mentioned earlier, when we are discussing the historical background of this teaching through the life of Maitri Yogi, it is said that Maitri Yogi is able to actually takes other sentient beings suffering, but again what he is taking also has limitation, it's limited. So to fully take other suffering, even Buddha cannot do that.
When around so Tasuki Yenji Dongha the Kase Sosu and Lander and Line to Lojong Jebayana. So lane to begin sub the wrong juji Dipa the Debakanga de Ha Militaro years.
Actually, what actually happens when one practices this lojong is as one keeps on practicing and taking other sentient beings' afflictions and obscurations and suffering, that much to that extent, one's own suffering, one's own afflictions and obscurations will disappear, will slowly dissipate.
But then the water Yibjab, Deva Nandala, Pena, Tenda Rada Mombo Yusiki Kilan Drone, Rada Kangat Ngasal, Sun Dishes, and Ketchu Chimboji Jabba the Jibares, they Jawan the Rada Tomji make a gate called Sun Diag and sub the park and got turned over yours. Penatina Yin Chan over his own yours.
So the great Acharya Chandakirti in his commentary on the 400 stanzas, he makes this point. So the lojong training is actually like going into the wild sanctuary or wildlife and then standing in the middle of wild animal and then shouting and then asking animal to come to me. And as you shout, the animals actually will, instead of coming to you, they will run away from you. So likewise, lojong trainings, one visualize and takes other suffering, but actually it releases one's own negativities and obscurations. And next question.
Thank you. So a closely related question. The fourth question is, if our body is suffering from chronic sickness, or if our mind is afflicted by mental afflictions, how to apply this situation in mind training?
For this kind of situation, for someone suffering from chronic illness or mental affliction, lojong's instruction and practice is very important and very crucial. Because the practice of lojong is able to transform the illness itself into the path towards liberation or path towards enlightenment. Not only that, for example, if one is usually speaking when one is suffering from physical illness, one emotionally feels sad and then unhappy. But when one is feeling physically ill, but if at that moment, if one practice the lojong training, then it will transform one's mood and one's own emotional kind of a state into more happy and more calm state.
The wrong town, they were the give a carry by an around the heart, which in the mind by Simply Tenam, the heart tender of Tataki the park gone, the rich Lord John Wayna, the Nippon Mississippi Yaku, the Chicago uses.
So, for example, if one can imagine a sick chronic illness situation, and in that kind of situation, one does not have to follow one of this instruction, but again, one can follow the lojong pattern, namely, now one can visualize that through this illness, one should visualize that I'm taking the illness, the similar illnesses of all sentient beings in the world, not only the illness, but their eventual causes. And then taking this, and then instead of having taken their illnesses, one is actually now giving them one's own positivities, one's own virtues to all sentient beings. So in this way, one can transform this chronic illness situation through the practice of lojong.
Then the legal lojong Gambala, then the Pena, Chekawaki, lojong the publics and the Memo Tongelma, share them. So Zenena, the Lilla, mainly the Ligi Jedu, consult getting Yamni Tata the Tangling in Yamni to Janet, then the Jan with Zana. Then is social duty directors of Taya, Tango on the bed, the Jan Shebana, the Taya, Toso Bonnet. Mambuchi Nasatil Tras on the Jamsing when main de la Koran, Zechuse, Pen and Zenega means 7 Nagika, Lojong Tatan, the Nike, Lojong Tozola, Zechuse in the main tire with the John goes. Yena Tangaso, Lojong do 공선은 나사대 지부기 작을 사회 제대로 미유도 매견은 또좀 참 흉라이나 총도 요래 간단한데 로뇽의 시라게 다다들라 난달 pen 버려서
So as I mentioned earlier, Lojong became widespread through the activities and through the teachings and activities of Chekhawa, Chekhawa Ishidoji, and it is said that actually he taught these Lojong teachings and imparted them to the leprosy patients, like people suffering from leprosy, and they practiced this Lojong, and eventually they became kind of cured of leprosy. And it was the teaching, the genre, the teaching itself is sometimes dubbed as Zechue, like the Dharma for the leprosy or leprosy, people suffering from leprosy. In any case, the idea is that if one practiced Lojong just merely to be free from suffering, then the scope is quite limited. So the idea is really to have a bigger vision or bigger scope of practicing Lojong so that it will become the path towards enlightenment. This is the important or crucial point.
Tene sem ga nong la yana ta nasa ti ta ju me ba yuru mo na den ke to so de so no dan thon de yana so no de dong ha dewa de ju ya je te yang
Khenpo gogi mindula.
chu
Ti
Gogi
kori
mandai.
chis on
ta ko ge de
da gogi dal.
ta di nasa ta ta de na do di kala sem to ko so no dan to de ju ya de nga chi bres so no dan to da yin ba yana ta nam ju nga sa nasa da di me na chu ju ya to so la ko ka bi da ga ma re pa nam yi ki chin do yo re che sam te de na nasa to so ki je be na lo nyong to so ki nyam le je ya da 추 덤 깨와는 세랍 단계를 펜바 좀 주바세고 고갑대 오는데 뭐네 나산도서 손제도 성추스는 상암인 삼반다고다 나랑 그 추야라 추라 공기 계획이인 삼반도 히든이 좀 진짜 좋아이나 근데 강아 동하디 삼부톤의 총도 그랬어.
So likewise, for example, if one is suffering from chronic illnesses or other illnesses or disease, generally, actually this kind of occasion really provides us with a rare opportunity to practice Dharma, because then one can really reflect on the samsaric nature and use the situation and transform it into the liberation, path of liberation. Generally, when we are physically well, we don't even remember Dharma and we are normally distracted. But this kind of opportunity really provides a rare occasion to practice Dharma. And one's attitude towards this kind of situation, like illness, should be that actually this is a blessing from Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, like directing us towards the path of Dharma. Likewise, one should think of the illness as a spiritual teacher, Kalyana Mitra, that is directing us towards the enlightened path.
Thank you. Khenpo, can you still hear us?
Yeah. Kinla. I think we lost him.
Oh, so as we've lost Khenpo, I think let's see if we can try to bring him back again to conclude. And while we're waiting, since we're waiting for Khenpo to come back, since I forgot to do so in the beginning, I'd like to introduce and say a few words about our translator, Lopon Sonam Jamsula, who is also a team member of the KVP.
I'm sorry, just now it's sign out. So anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Time is up.
Yeah, time is up. Oh yeah. Okay, thank you. So yeah, our time is up for questions. We just had the final request for Khenpo to, if possible, could you please read one time out loud this text in Tibetan? For our audience and our team would like to request to read one time in Tibetan.
Oh, this Lojong, you mean the Tunjema?
Tunjema, yeah.
Ah, okay.
And that will be, and then after that we won't have time for more questions, I think. So please, is that possible?
Okay, fine.
We have?
Yes, fine with me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Lojong Tunjema Sindi Nyosa Yoso Namon Gorove, the Tiwachim Lojong Mangan Tunjema Chap, number someone at Tombo Selatin Lojong, the Dindak, Sunum Soto, but Manila Sage Polam, Yama, Tap Tesan in the Zobu Sunday, Sadrend, Skill, Leach, Simple Solas, with the Hit, the Chebra Zadan, Koda, with the Santi Tanti, you did it, the weather, dead, don't have the room, but the auto with the big part of now. Down that the room be changed the lovers of any all of them alone in the Thomas Mata, you said, and how ye but long soon you be but the wrong tongues they gave at the end, they were the cheaper work up with numbers on the mind. Now you money to be there, cheaper in the number says on the sum. So long you are the yam the mati, you did the mati, and now ye bunny tongue long gitanti. Kiddy Tayawata napkins on the wrong and napon, yamani show, ning nondo, nondo. Nga begins to the Pape, 37 some didn't mean I'm jealous of Homer, said the pass of Sanjay Tanjalo, Garbos me some couple some Jimmy between the Tang Jimmy, but the Nangan Rory do it to the Susan Honey, but the Telechet, the Devaton school, Sao, somebody Conga, Samani didn't don't have on the Limbalon in the wrong part, member now telling you between the same year, really did it on the Kona Kong, this is some other young Yawani. Zone the Kong, but the taste of the Mazza Sajua, Sunchi, unity, community, the day they were the debatant in the Rangi Tigger Kono Baba, you are shut out at name, Lojan the Ron, Sanji Tanjan and Siki, True Chunzen of the Chapapadi Lamatam, good city. Channel never say, Rake, don't go in China, the Toma member and Daga Marton, the state, and service the Sissi of the good tragedy with the young Padan Lamatamana, Quay, Luigi at the Daga channel, the Terry Michael Gamachas, Palagan, Ribalagan, Ribabalagan, Papachina, Ringwana, Raina Jambers, Marina, Chillas, the Conde, the Terry Sehu, Conzo, Kidon Gender Business, Dog, Lulo, the Gazan of the Tona Conde, Chicken, do again the street, soon, Deva Chicken. Chetan Deva in the Switchy, Jimmy Dom, Jitterchi, Dog, Sawa, number maybe in the Sanji Kunji, Yavan of switching for some of Redome Pacific on the Sawa. Now, Torma, Tang, Temple, Lojan, and Sending, which Tornado some day on the wrong with the Berto, Oma, their mandate and burn on the Namka Treaty. Namka Treaty, the Preparatory, in some time cause of the Mip and Namkata with J, Tail, and Nana, Lawana, Jumata, Gombrasao, to when you wanted the Berlin wrong with the Shadow. Nang is saying on the Syrian you were saying on the day in the Chadan chooses who say to say me also long come around the Lin Yong you send it and you take it and make ring not learn the sent it on the throne but the ring which you will condemn about the ring the say good never to say which no put on the corner content of the enemy but to jail the person on the Mayin over which you will learn Lord on the Rangli in over some la tele Hama sending on the content but taking about the lamb mark on a long but One of the Japan on the papers of the Judah Melamon, Tommy, Lemon, Judah, Joseph, also with the Nasos of the Yanos, and just and part of somebody there, paid the Lana person, the Yin, but only Yin of manager, the Surgeon number, Junimina, Marita, Sebason, some Bellet, Tombo, but Chat, the Satan government, and select. Jebalos and Chigam and the Chun developed in Nam Chibalan, so with the Jose Chandra, the Pondalatan. Yana Dumbasu go Toma the Cheba Pumbo, Cheba Punish, Yamba Chicam, Pardon, Jizzy, DJ, Naked, the Madame Maya, but the Yama, but the children naked of the Mo, Lojo, Jeba, and Chorman, but Sinjin of the Lojo to Mohammed, was the Chiba, never calling on the Pikin of the His, so David only is going some in the same in Chivitas of the data with Doma, someone else and Mono, which to the Jibalaman and Gonga, so what other than you Susan of good and dinging the same Yamson of Yin, it's now gets along into the union. It's no matter Tahi Democration gave us within the Brazil Jones, the social luton to make the nigger from the Nam Chella, Lapison, just only give that you join the Tanju did a Himmel and the Tamedas of Yenama Key to bounce going to Tempa Rabgye, Parzon Bichan, and Sunday cut it on the chisel of the cities gave a great to Okay, so if you want me keep going question and answer, please do so.
Okay, thank you. I think though that our time is up, so I will now just turn over the session over to KVP Director Torma Günther.
Okay.
Who will have a few words to say to complete. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay.
Khenpo, thank you so much. What a wonderful teaching on such a profound and helpful practice. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sonamla, for all of your translation, and to our interpreters, Paula and Pema Namgyal, thank you so much. Thank you also to David, Droma, and Karma Palden from Kumarajiva, and especially to Jennifer, because Kumarajiva worked very closely with us to help us make this available to the Chinese audience. So it's really thanks to Kumarajiva that they're here, that the Chinese is able to be heard. And thank you especially also to the my wonderful Khyentse Vision Project team, to the translation team that is making all of these precious texts available in English, and to the editors who work so hard to edit them and make them ready to be published. We have a wonderful man called Rupe who is doing all the beautiful PDF design to make them look so beautiful. To Pema Maya also for helping to organize these wonderful events. There's so many people I need to thank, but I know our time is short, so I won't mention all of the names. But thank you to everybody involved. And thanks also to, my biggest thanks really is, of course, to Khyentse Foundation. And it's thanks to Khyentse Foundation that this project is even possible. Without their support and their help, we wouldn't be here at all. So huge thank you to Khyentse Foundation and to Zongzi Khyentse Rinpoche for his extraordinary activity that enables projects like this to manifest. And of course, if you've enjoyed reading our texts and you've enjoyed these events, please consider supporting us. As you know, Khyentse Foundation and this project rely entirely upon the generosity of donations and sponsorship. So it's your precious, precious support that enables us to keep translating these texts, and that enables us to keep having events like this wonderful teaching that you can all join in with us for. So please, on our website, there is a donate page, and there you'll find a donate page both in simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese as well. You can choose your language. So please jump on our website and have a look. There's also a subscription button if you want to stay in touch with us and you'd like to hear about our future events and about our texts as we translate them and publish them. So please make sure that you subscribe to our mailing list so that you can receive our newsletters. And of course, keep in touch with us on social media, because we'll always be posting our updates on there. And that's probably the best way to keep abreast of what translations are coming out and what events are happening. So we have a couple more events planned, but this event really marks the end of this special week of celebrating Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's anniversary. And I can't imagine a better way to end a week of publishing translations than having this wonderful teaching by Khenpo. So thank you again. There was some questions about the availability of the text that Jamie translated in Chinese. So we are working currently on producing a Chinese translation that will be available. We will let you know when it is available, and we will make sure that that's posted in our social media, but also posted in ways that a Chinese audience will have access to. So we'll update you when we know more. And the recording of this teaching, the Chinese translation recording, will be available in a few days. Again, we'll post a link when this is available, and Kumarajiva will help us disseminate this to the Chinese audience. So stay in touch and we'll let you know when it's available. There's a couple of upcoming events which I just want to quickly tell you about. One is that Zongzi Khyentse Rinpoche asked us with this project to focus a little bit on creating musical versions of particular chants and prayers and poems. So we're working on creating some metered versions of texts and prayers, and we'll be focusing on creating musical versions to these prayers soon. So we'll post more about that on social media, but that will be upcoming over the next month or so. There will be other events like a special focus on our translator training program. And all of these things will be updated in social media and through our newsletters when we post them out. So the best way to stay in touch is to subscribe and follow us on social media. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you so much, Khenpo. Thank you so much, everybody involved. Thank you so much to our audience. It's been wonderful having you here.